Hi, I'm talking with Mark Koski. He's the Director of Sports and Events at NFHS, and he works a great deal with event planning, which is the topic of our unit for this week. We're really trying to dig in a little bit to that experience of what it's like to have to run a tournament or a conference or even something like a league, and kind of the difficulties and challenges that are posed by making hotel reservations, scheduling the tournament, what have you. Mark, thanks for joining us and being willing to do this. First of all, can you just tell us a little bit about your job here at NFHS?
Sure, Kevin. No, I appreciate you asking. So as Kevin mentioned, my name is Mark Koski, one of the directors of sports and actually the director of events here at the NFHS, with primary roles of negotiating hotel contracts and putting on all the events in which we currently hold for our membership. Those events being anywhere from to 55 local meetings that we have here in town and here in Indianapolis, and local meetings would be all of our rules committees and task force in which we have put together, as well as our national convention, and we actually hold 3 national conventions a year, one being the National Athletic Directors Conference every December, and that hosts about 2,200 people. We have our summer conference, which is every July, and that's right around 900 to 1,000 folks each year. And then our winter meeting for our executive directors in January. So we host a lot of events here at the NFHS, and again, the primary role is to negotiate that contract and see it all the way through the event phase and the implementation of a successful event, and of course, ultimately paying that bill at the end of the day, which is always fun to do, and continue negotiating to make sure you receive the best rate.
So you've obviously had a lot of experience in planning events. What do you think is kind of the novice event planner's most common mistake? What's that thing that stands out to you as the oops that somebody who's not done this before is probably most likely to make?
Sure. I think there are several things that I continue to make some mistakes with, or we all make mistakes with on a periodic basis as we're negotiating that contract. But probably first and foremost, I would say jumping into a hotel too early, meaning saying that, going to the hotel and saying, okay, hey, we need to host our event here. You always want to keep them on edge. You want them to know that there are thousands of other hotel properties out there. Now you might realize that, hey, I want to go to this one property because of location, but make sure that they don't know that. So always keep them on their toes, keep them on edge. An RFP process is very critical. Whether you send it to 1 or 20, make sure that you have an RFP so that they know that they're bidding for your event. I think it's very, very important. Another mistake that we see folks make, and it all depends upon your position of this field of negotiating contracts, but a lot of folks will hire out to a third party. And third parties are great, but someone has to pay for that third party. And of course, you will be told that, hey, your attendees will pay nothing. Well, in the long run, they're paying 10% more on their hotel bill for that third party, because of course the hotel needs to make that money somehow. So that definitely is a mistake. And I would say that the third word of wisdom, if I have any for you, it would be to always try to negotiate or sign a contract at the end of a quarter or the end of a year. And like purchasing a car at the end of the month or end of the quarter, the hotel folks, they work on commission, and if you can negotiate your contract again at the end of March, the end of June, the end of December, they're hungry for a check like all of us are, and so at least they will have an opportunity to bring down that rate come the final hour. Here at the NFHS, we generally sign our contracts on December 31st, which sounds crazy, and it's crazy to the hotel world, but I can assure you there's thousands of dollars that we've saved our membership, and ultimately the schools and students in which we serve in the long run. So you've got to work some extra hours sometimes. Working on December 31st isn't a fun time, but ultimately it helps your contract down the road.
Now, a school that is doing this on a much more small scale than, say, a national conference might not be familiar with the term RFP and what is entailed in having a request for talk a little bit more about that process
Yeah.
and what they would do.
Definitely. So, as Kevin mentioned, RFP, a request for proposal, is a form that you would send out to your local convention and visitors bureau if you're going to host a meeting anywhere between 25 rooms on peak, meaning your largest night, all the way up. But I would suggest keep that RFP to a minimum. A 2-page RFP is plenty. Sometimes if they have more questions, they'll call you and ask. But I think it's critical to have an RFP so that you have everything documented ahead of time. An error I think that I've made numerous times is not having everything in that request for proposal initially. It's always easy to negotiate on the front end, but once you sign that contract, the contract's a contract, and really the ball's in the hotel's court after that contract's signed, and they're going to try to get their money somehow. And so if you have everything initially in that request for proposal, then of course everything's in the contract, and it's going to be a much easier, cleaner phase for you come the end.
Okay. Well, you obviously are dealing with multiple events at one time, which is different than probably what most high school coaches would do. They might be doing maybe one or two,
Sure.
Assuming they're involved maybe with a state or a regional tournament. How do you organize your time? Like, when you're planning, if you were thinking about one event that you had to worry about, where do you prioritize your efforts? How do you get all the tasks done?
Gosh, yeah, that's a great question. It's a tough one because there's a reason we're hosting this meeting here in my executive director's office, not mine, because my office is a mess right now. But to your point though, this type of work obviously requires a lot of organization, as you mentioned, and I'm one that constantly takes a lot of notes, because if you host your events annually, which I'm sure some of you might, or every other year, I mean, the best thing to do is always obviously go back and look on your notes, but you can never start too early. These things, when you initially negotiate that contract all the way to paying the bill phase, you can never start too early, and try to really plan your work out. And I'm not telling you anything that you don't know, but I know year 2 is a lot easier than year 1, because you have all of the mistakes in which we've made. After that first year, you go back, you look in your notes. After all of our major conferences, we hold staff meetings, or I'd recommend to you all to contact those in which attended your event. Hey, what was great? What was bad? And sometimes you'll look at those and you'll say, wow, this must have been the worst event I've ever hosted, because people are, of course, going to draw upon the negative. But ultimately, it's helping you, because the next year, you're going to be able to look at that and make sure that same mistake, so to speak, doesn't happen again. So constant documentation of everything, and constantly trying to keep it in front of you. Sometimes hotels, they don't want to necessarily talk to you until 2 weeks, 3 weeks, 4 weeks ahead of your event, which is understandable, because obviously they're in the event business as well, and they're constantly changing. In terms of every week they've got X number of events in theirs, but sometimes you got to push them a little bit just to get them moving, so that come the last 2 weeks and you're getting hit hard by all the schools that are trying to plan their trips or make final arrangements, you've got all your initial work with the hotel done, and then at that phase all you're doing hopefully is taking care of your local problems or your attendees' issues that you'll be working on. So.
Now, you've talked a lot already about the negotiation process and tactics. Let's imagine a situation where I'm dealing with a particularly tough manager. What kinds of techniques do you recommend in the actual negotiation process that might help? You've already mentioned timing being one of them. Are there any others?
Yeah, I would say constantly keep them on their toes to make sure that they're not their only hotel in town. They know that. This is such a good year, so to speak, to negotiate contracts, because all businesses are hungry, and hotels being those, they don't want to lose the business. So if you go to them initially, and they're going to always ask you what your budget is, and I would constantly state to folks and to myself, I say, hey, don't let them know your budget, because they're going to meet your budget. I can assure you. If your budget is $5,000 for this event, whatever it may be, they're going to hit that 5,000. But you know, it's best not to really share budgets. I mean, if you can kind of keep that away from them, so to speak.
So how do you answer that
Yeah.
question? Do you say, you don't need to know that?
Right.
I mean, how do you?
Yeah, you know, it's funny. I've done that numerous times. I always, actually, when they ask that question, I constantly ask them. I say, "Well, tell me what you can give it to us for," and then we backtrack from there. So a lot of times with your food and beverage, I mean, they'll say, "Okay, what's your budget per plate? Is it $30? Is it $40? Is it 10?" And I would always respond to them saying, "Hey, let us know what you have, and then we'll work our ways, you know, down or up from there." And they'll give you various price points, but always know that there's so much room for negotiation. Everything's a negotiation, you know, when it comes to this business. And I would hate to say, or I wouldn't say that your negotiating is done after the contract, because it's not. I mean, you're constantly working on items in which will ultimately save you all money, but the more you can get in that contract initially, the better you're going to be, unless you have to negotiate on site. So, good questions. I mean, these are all good questions. It's
having done some hotel negotiations myself, one of the techniques that we used to use was kind of a good cop, bad cop approach, taking two people in,
Sure.
one who was going to be more aggressive, one that was less aggressive. Have you ever tried that, and does it work?
You know, it's a good one. Yeah, we do that here. One of our staff members on our staff, her and myself, will go in. Unfortunately, I'm the bad cop usually, and she's the good cop. But we do that a lot, and you always want to, you know, keep them on your same page, so to speak. The hotel, you know, you want to give them the love that they want and deserve, but they have to know that at the end of the day, that you're on top of things, you're looking at things. I always say that the first 2 days of one of our conferences are definitely by far the toughest for us, because just like the first day or first week of school, you know that you're going to be pretty tough on those kids just to set the tone for the year. And same with our conferences, is that the first 2 days are, hey, we are nitpicking everything, a part of those room sets, everything that's involved with that event, so that they understand that, hey, you're on top of things. And I guarantee after you do that, I know it's tough to do that, but come day 3, day 4, or you know, sometimes day 2 in your matter, it's going to be so much easier, because they know that you're serious, they know that you expect perfection, so to speak, and you're going to have it you know, done a certain way versus just another event. You know, and hotels get into that trap so much, is that, hey, it's just another event, which it is, but to you, it's your big event, you know, and you've been working all year long, and you have your name on the line, so to speak, that you need it to be a successful event, because again, it's people are looking at you to host a good event.
Now, a common phenomenon that high school coaches will experience in speech and debate is maybe they're going to a particular town and there isn't a formal hotel block set up by the host. It's just, here's a list of 10 hotels to pick from. We know there will be openings. Go find your own hotel when you come.
Sure.
If you're approaching it from the perspective of that coach who's now just calling cold and saying, I need 10 hotel rooms or 5 hotel rooms or whatever, what do you advise that they do to get the best advantage?
It's another great question. I would say first and foremost, obviously, you're going to check online. You're going to see what their initial bottom rate is. But then from there, of course, don't book it online. Don't stop there. You would actually go from there to the hotel staff, the hotel sales staff, and let them know. I mean, don't let them know that you know their initial price. You kind of want to keep that in your back pocket. But let them know that, hey, you have a budget to meet. Again, they don't want to lose those 10 rooms. Those 10 rooms are valuable rooms to them. And so let them know your budget. Let them know that you're a nonprofit, a school organization, that you know, location-wise or however you decide to pick this exact place. That, hey, you want to be there. You like the brand. Maybe it's consistent. Maybe you're working with a PO. You know, those things that are listed up front. Let them know all that and put it on the line. Usually they're not going to be able to meet your bottom line. They're going to give it $5 more, you know, but in the long run you might be able to negotiate down a couple dollars a night. You know, so you have their price, their online price, kind of in your back pocket, and then of course you know, work it down from there. But never stop, you know, with what's posted online and what they tell you on the phone. I would say if you have a group of 10 plus, always make sure you talk to their sales staff.
And I think a lot of people don't realize when they go out to purchase hotels that even with smaller groups that you can negotiate. I think a lot of people think you have to take the price on its face. Another thing that I found a lot of people don't know about is comp rooms. At what point, at what size of a group should somebody start talking about comp rooms in a hotel?
With our contracts, we negotiate, and probably much larger scale, we understand, but we negotiate one comp room per 30 room nights. And so whether it be, you're hosting an event and you have 60 room nights, well, that would be, in a sense, 2 comp rooms. But what I would urge you all is to use those comp rooms as obviously dollars back in your pocket versus assigning them to an individual person. Actually just say, hey, if our total bill is $5,000 and we've received 6 comp rooms, take that off your final bill in the long run. Because sometimes when you don't, if they take your rooms initially, that will hurt your attrition fees, which sometimes contracts you have a 80% attrition or 90% attrition, which I would urge you never to sign anything higher than 70%. But take those comp rooms in dollar format come the long run at the end of the bill. But utilize those comp rooms. That's critical, and have that again in the contract initially.
For those who might not be familiar with the notion of attrition fees, can you explain that a little bit?
Yeah. So attrition fees are the hotels, like all of us, we all have budgets to meet, and so when they sign a contract, they know that they're going to bring in X dollars from this contract, as long as you meet this attrition fees in which we're talking about. So if you sign 70% of your hotel rooms will be accounted for, meaning 70% of your attrition will be accounted for, then they can only account for that come budget time. And so instead of, if you book 100 rooms and you negotiate a 70% attrition, meaning you have to pick up 70 of those 100 rooms in order to meet your hotel block, your quota. And we've actually had where we've become really close on attrition, where we might be at 68%. Well, we're finding our 2 favorite friends, so to speak, and putting them up in those hotel rooms for the night, or even just utilizing those rooms, because sometimes if you don't meet your block, not only do you have to come, and meet your block, but you're also going to lose your food and beverage discounts. You're going to lose your audiovisual discounts in which you've negotiated, your comp rooms. And so it's better sometimes for you to eat those rooms and check into those rooms, so to speak, as long as there's only, a couple rooms, versus in the long run losing everything you negotiated, because generally everything you negotiate is based upon that attrition fee. Hotels make their money off of heads and beds, off of the rooms in which they sell, more so than the 20-25% that they might make off of food and beverage. They want those rooms filled because they're paying for those rooms anyways. The food they're not paying for until they actually make it.
So, given the number of things that you manage, how do you keep the stress under control?
I tell you, that's always fun. But you're in jobs that has constant stress, with working with parents, working with students, working with administration. It all carries over to the event business. I think you're all well prepared for it. The first and foremost thing is always staying positive. That's something that we try to keep a really upbeat pace as much as we can. As long as we've documented our notes from the previous year, we know that the things that might have frustrated us the year before and things that we need to change for this next year. And so as you do it more and more, obviously it becomes easier. That first year, you're probably telling yourself, wow, this is the last thing I ever want to be in is an event manager or in the event business. But there's so much reward at the end of the day that you see those other coaches in which attended your event that are taking notes, that are going to host their events the way that you hosted your events, and a lot of satisfaction with that. And ultimately, the students in which we all serve, it's benefiting them. And so trying to keep positive, trying to keep upbeat, keeping the hotels on their toes. Again, it might be kind of tough for the first day, but if they know that you're serious about it and they know that it's a big deal for you, they're going to make it a big deal. And make sure that you invite them to be a part of your team to put that event on. You know, they want that. They want to know that, hey, they're a teammate of you because you're all working together for a great end result.
Good. Is there anything else that you think people should know that we haven't discussed?
Gosh, I tell you, you know, the NFHS, obviously we're here to help you, and so if you need anything such as example RFPs, in which we spoke about, example of contracts, we're willing to, you know, give you any of that stuff. You know, we don't want to, you know, keep anything in our inbox, so to speak, but anything that we can use, please contact, you know, Kent Summers, yourself, myself, and we will give you everything that we have. But the event business, very, very rewarding. It's high stress, it's tough, because you're doing much more than just the average coach that is, you know, bringing, you know, their students. I mean, you're bringing your students and hosting other students. You know, you're doing a lot of things, but it's all for a positive end result, and it's a good thing for kids. So we appreciate your work.
Good. Well, we've been talking to Mark Koski at NFHS. As he said, if you have any questions or need resources, NFHS is here to support it. So thanks a lot, Mark.
Thank you. Pleasure. Good luck to you. Thanks.